Josh Peck. Absolutely incredible to have this man on the Shoney Show here. I've been so excited about getting him onto the show because at a recent event, we sat down together at dinner and we were bouncing ideas, and there was so many realization points that I had about this guy, and I was just like, this guy is so interesting. There's so many incredible stories that this guy could tell, and it's partly about your story over the last like 18 months transitioning into coaching and how that's happened in the growth trajectory. But it's also about how you structure your day and your family life, and everything is so unique and it's so exciting for people to hear about. I mean, if I was just to go straight into it and say, Josh tries to maintain 4-day work week per week and 4 hours per day whilst doing it, but simultaneously has managed to have incredible amounts of growth in that time frame of working. So I'm so excited to have you on the Shoney Show, my man. And we don't always do this, but I just want you to tell a little bit about your story. So tell us about how you weren't a coach.
Yeah.
And then you transitioned. Tell everybody what you were doing before. It just doesn't sound like you were destined to become a coach. So tell everybody what you were doing before, how you ended up transitioning in, and a little bit about how that happened.
Yeah, well, look, that's a scarily impressive introduction, which now I'm going to have to try try to live up to. But yeah, so I wasn't always a coach. Coach is my second career. I'm a midlife career change coach, so I'm living my own journey, as like so many coaches do. For 20 years, I worked in politics. So I was a lobbyist by day. I had worked in house for a couple of organisations, and then for the last kind of 15 years of my career, I was in one of the kind of big London consultancies. And I was also, a couple of years before that, I'd spent 12 years as a local councillor as well as an elected councillor, kind of balancing, juggling those two, frankly, full-time jobs. I stood down from the council a few years ago because I'd actually always thought that my future, my kind of longer term career would be in frontline politics. I'd moved probably from being a councillor to being a member of parliament, and I'd actually been working a couple of seats for quite a long time to try and kind of take those on. But I just gradually had this dawning realization that it wasn't really working for me anymore. There was partly balance. A big corporate job was enough on its own, let alone politics is 24/7. It never, there's always something to do. I am definitely by instinct a workaholic, so a job where it never ends was pretty bad for me. But also, it was incredibly rewarding, but it just didn't end. And so I kind of came to the conclusion that for that reason, and for actually just got less fulfilling over time, partly because some of the toxicity of politics, partly because I decided the politics wasn't what I wanted to do, because I didn't believe that I could be a good enough dad and a good enough politician. I couldn't square that circle. And when I realised that, then I had to work out what I wanted to do next. And I realised that actually just being a corporate lobbyist wasn't going to be fulfilling enough. And then I had to decide what it was I was going to do. And that took me a while, but eventually I kind of decided it was going to be a coach. And here I am a few years later.
Excellent, superb. And that part there where you said about, being a workaholic, and I think most coaches can, or business owners in general, can either categorize themselves as a workaholic or somebody who just can't switch off, which basically has the same outcome. So What is it about how you're a workaholic, but you had the idea, or how did it come about, the idea of like 4 days a week, 4 hours per day was your target for working?
So yeah, it was a process, and I'd had that kind of growing realization for a while that politics was probably not going to be for me. But it was such a big part of who I am. Like since I'd been a teenager, really, I've been very involved, very kind of invested in politics, and it had taken me a long time to really decide that wasn't what I wanted to do. And the moment when I actually decided I was going to have to change career came on a plane. I was flying back from Hong Kong. We'd been to visit some family friends. I was sat there like on that midnight flight. My husband and our first daughter then were kind of sleeping next to me, and I was trying to keep myself awake. So I was looking for a film I could watch to get myself back, keep myself awake, and get myself back onto UK time, basically. And I ended up watching the Amy Winehouse documentary, Amy, which I didn't really have much interest in, but it was the only thing I was kind of vaguely interested in. And it starts with this lovely home footage of her like mucking around at home, just kind of this innocent kind of 11 or 12-year-old. And then the voiceover comes on. It says it was about this time in her life that her dad started having this long affair and was out every night of the week for the kind of whole of her teen years, basically. And she responded to that by thinking, well, if you're not around for me, I'm going to do whatever I like. And that started the alcoholism and the eating disorders that eventually killed her. And as I sat on the plane and listened to that, my blood ran cold. Because I wasn't off having a long affair, but I was out a lot of nights. And even when I was home, I was kind of physically there, but I wasn't kind of mentally present. I always had my head in the next pitch or the next, whatever it was. And it really made it crystal clear to me then that I wasn't making this work for her. I wasn't making it work for my husband. I wasn't even making it work for me. Like, I had no time to myself to do all of the things that kind of make life enjoyable. So at that point, I knew I wanted to change career. It took me a couple more years to work out as a coach that I wanted to be. But I knew from that point that whatever I did next, I couldn't do it in the same way of just cramming more and more and more in. And so when I was really designing what my next career looked like, not just what I did, but how I did it, I did some work with my coach at the time then on, actually, what does a great life look like? And so I looked at all the things I wanted to be doing other than work. It just became really clear to me that if I worked 9 hours a day, there wasn't enough time in the week to have the life that I wanted, let alone being kind of physically present for my 2 kids now. And so I did a lot of research on kind of what work is and what it kind of can look like. And it became, there's loads and loads of research that human beings can do 4 hours of meaningful dial moving work a day. And if you're doing more than that, you're either kind of shuffling paper around for the rest of the time or you're ultimately burning yourself out. And it really dropped in for me at that point. I was like, okay, I'm going to work for 4 hours a day, 4 days a week, and the rest of the time I'm going to enjoy life. I'm going to be present for my kids. I'm going to do the things that I enjoy. I'm going to actually have time to go to the gym and meditate and see my friends and all of those things. I'm going to actually do some stuff that's fun. I had to remember what was fun. I'd got to this point in my kind of 40s where I didn't really remember what fun was anymore because just all the time had been squeezed out. It was just kind of work or kind of responsibilities. So like really early on, while I was still doing my corporate job and really in the early days of building my coaching business, I set that intention that I was going to work 4 days a week, 4 hours a day, the 4x4 that I call it. And on top of that, I wasn't going to work school holidays. And that's now by and large how I run my business, how I run my life. And it's been an absolute game changer. But I have to kind of set my day, my week, my month and my year up in a way that makes me do that, because left to my own devices, I will work and work and work and work still. So, I try and bookend my day. I'll make sure I go to the gym first thing in the day, and then I'll try and book in a call with a friend or a coffee with a friend at the point I'm supposed to be finishing, so that I really do make sure that I do like that. And I don't get it right the whole time. This week's been a busy week. It's been an amber or even a red week. But when I start with the intention of doing the 4x4, then a busy week is maybe 6 or 7 hours rather than 9, 10, 11 or 12.
If that's some of the things that you do to maintain the 4 hours is, have those things that happen before the 4 hours start and things that are scheduled in thereafter, what are some of the things that you do within the 4 hours and the 4 days to maximize the 4 hours that you do put in to your coaching business?
Well, one of the things this isn't quite answering the question, but one of the things I've really had to do is just get comfortable with the fact that there's stuff I won't get done, because there's nothing more satisfying than me than ticking off an item on a to-do list. Getting something off my Trello board hits all the right buttons, and my Trello board's probably pretty long, but so kind of relentless prioritization, being really clear on what's the 1 or 2 or 3 things I absolutely have to do to move the dial today. Like, that makes a lot of difference. There's always stuff I can do, so that's one. Secondly, having a couple of the 2 things that take my time are kind of sales and marketing, and then kind of coaching. From the coaching perspective, a lot of my coaching now is done in my group programs. So I've designed those in a way where I can deliver a really, really, really high quality service that genuinely kind of transforms, changes lives without me having to spend loads and loads and loads of time one-to-one with people. And then in my one-to-ones, I have a limit now of only doing 3 one-to-ones at a time, because otherwise my diary's full and it's done and I can't give anyone the attention that they deserve. So I make sure that I'm allocating my time to clients in a way that enables me to really prioritize great service, and then I set up the programs therein. So I've got some great associate coaches that work with me that do some of the other stuff, and then I just make sure my programs are set up to really deliver that high quality. And then in terms of sales and marketing, the thing that's really worked for me and that you and I have worked on a lot is having a couple of strategies that really work together and enable me to be reaching people and bringing in new clients, bringing in the right kind of people to work without having to constantly be reinventing the wheel. And that consistency for me is really important. So I have two things that I just do kind of really regularly, actually three things that bring in kind of the consistent clients. And having that consistency, one, means I don't have to spend loads and loads of time on it, but it also means that I can fine tune those processes and really work on being really good at them and just, getting better and better at those. So I guess the other thing I then do is I really try and fit my work to my biorhythms. What works best for me. I know that if I need to write something, if I need to write some content, then it's best early in the morning. Kind of the earlier I can do it, the better. The longer I go through the day until I get to about 11 o'clock when I kind of come back to life. If I do it early in the day, then that's best. But those are the main things I do.
Excellent. Yeah, the repeatable systems, it's not just the fact that it saves so much time not having to reinvent your marketing every single month, but simultaneously, if you and I are the type of people that are wired to be workaholics, if we don't have repeatable systems that we can rely on, we basically spend all of our time worrying about what we're not doing because we don't know what's coming up in any given month. So yeah, really, really valuable there. You said something that I think is just such a great term here. I think it would be a term, relentless prioritization. I think that's an incredible term. Marketing's one side of things. Of course, we go through marketing game plans with you, but both inside and outside of the business, relentless prioritization, when there is so many things that you can have on a Trello board, how do you go through prioritization? Are you looking at it as what's my biggest bang for my buck, or is there certain things that you prioritize over other things in terms of business and outside of business as well?
Yeah, so for me, it's about having a long-term view, and I've heard you talk about this as well. My prioritization is about the long term rather than about today or tomorrow. So I've got it sat right here next to me, a document that has a 3-year vision, a 1-year vision, a 3-month down to this week. So I set a big 3-year vision, and mine is big and punchy. There's a lot of zeros in the financial bit, and it says the world's biggest career change program and a £10 million business. It's a big kind of audacious goal. I don't actually know what the biggest career change program in the world is now, but it's that kind of vision that I set, and then I break it down. If that's where I want to be in 3 years, where do I need to be in 1 year? And if that's where I need to be in 1 year, what are my 3 projects over the next 3 months? And if those are my 3 projects, what are the 3 things I need to be doing this week? And then so I look, this week I've got 3 things on there, and that sets what my priorities are today. So I'm always going from the big 3-year right the way down to what am I doing today. So it's really simple.
Excellent. And the other thing that you touched upon there was the time of the day and the things that you're doing. When you set, for instance, if you are doing your 4 days and 4 hours, is it always, for instance, 10 till 2, and it's always certain days of the week, or is there certain days and certain times? Are you a night owl? Are you a morning person? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, look, you're about to discover that when you have kids, a lot of the flexibility around some of that stuff disappears. So I genuinely don't actually know whether I'm a night owl or not now, or a morning person, because I have to get up at 6 o'clock to be up before my kids. So, I'll get up at 6 o'clock. I'll have half an hour on a good day to, do a bit of meditation and time myself, and then there's an hour and a half where it's getting them up and getting them out. Then I'll go to the gym at 8:30, and then 9:30 I'm ready to work, and I'll do kind of 4 hours. I try to have a kind of lunch break within that, and then by 3:30, 4 o'clock they're starting to come home, and I'm not always with them, but if I'm here in the house, then they're kind of there. So it's pretty structured because of that, really. And then I try to have, and then generally Fridays are my day off. So it's kind of Monday to Thursday, 9:30 to about kind of 2:30 with some time for lunch generally.
You've obviously had a lot of growth over the last 6 months, 8 months inside your business. For context, going from, we're somewhere around 6K, below 6K slightly per month, and then shooting right up to what has been, I think, a record of 23, something along those lines anyway. So going through that trajectory there's many coaches who will either have gone through that, are going through that, or will aspire to go through that, who are listening to this right now. What are some of the things that you met throughout that process? Because sometimes a lot of people go, yeah, I want to double, I want to triple, I want to quadruple my growth. but sometimes they can hit a lot of things along the way that were unexpected. Is there anything that you had that were puzzles along the way? I mean, I know that VAT was one of them, but
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you met along the way that you had to take into consideration when growing?
Yeah. I'm definitely at a point now where I have a whole set of kind of back office challenges. I've just spent some time with a strategist to look at kind of process and all of that kind of stuff because, my process used to be all very manual, all very human. Me and my VA would kind of send some messages and that would be that. What the size I am now, like that just doesn't work. I can't stay across that stuff, let alone a kind of team of people. So I've had to you go to the next level of organization in terms of systems and processes. And that's definitely a work in progress. I'm really clear that the quality of my coaching is not just what my customers will judge me on. My clients will judge me on their whole client experience. And so that's, do they receive the emails in good time? Do they get a response? All of that stuff, do their payments come out on time? All of that stuff that can feel a bit less relevant than the coaching. It's like if you write a piece of content and there's a spelling mistake in there, that's what people will look at. It's the same with client service. If you get the client service wrong, the standard of your coaching, how transformational it is, can be really impacted. Their view of that can be really impacted by the client service. So having to get really serious about what does great client service look like in this scale of business and what are the systems that back that up is one thing. And then there's a whole bunch of mindset work you have to do. When you're, getting to that scale, as you say, kind of going from that level means working with a lot of more people, but putting yourself in front of a lot more people. And when you do that, you're going to come across more people who have something to say about you that's not particularly nice. And so whether it's running adverts and having more of those comments, someone said yesterday, "Oi, Josh, you look like Max Headroom." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, whatever." I've got Max and Woody that comes up, it's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, frankly, if that's the worst comment I ever get, fine. But
If you saw mine, then you'd be pretty chuffed with what you get.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was when I had you look like Woody and Buzz. I was like, brilliant. I'll take that. Strong draw, brilliant. But yeah, the harder thing is when you're working, particularly in a group program, when you're working with more people, you're going to inevitably get some people that don't get the results with you, and you have to do some work on that. I always need to come back to, like, do I show up with integrity? Do I do the best job that I can with people? And then, if they're struggling, what do I put in place? But ultimately, it's really important for me to believe that my clients are grown-ups who are able to make decisions about themselves and leave some of that. So, you have to, that's been a big learning, being able to not judge myself on how well someone does. I mean, fortunately, most people have these incredible transformations in their lives and their career, but from time to time, someone will maybe struggle, and being able to know that I've done a good job and that they have some responsibilities to grown up for themselves, has been a bit of work as well.
Yeah, 100%. And that's going to happen in any fast growing coaching business specifically, because that whole thing of, let's say, like, at least 1 in 25. I mean, we're dealing with human beings in general here. So a lot of people won't do exactly what they say that they'll do when they're, investing in anything. They'll buy a book and they never read it. They buy a course and they never watch it. They say they'll do the plan, but they won't do the plan. That it's going to happen. And if, let's say, that was 1 in 25, just for a random number to pick, if you have 100 clients, then, you're going to have 4 of them. So it's going to feel like this is becoming more frequent, whereas it may still be the exact same amount of people that are coming through. It's just that you have more clients, so you have to experience more of the negative alongside it. It's like the good and the bad kind of scale together, unfortunately, to some extent. So yeah, that's always going to happen for sure. One additional one that I wanted to dive into here, because you've done so well with them specifically, and I know there's 2 other main strategies for you as well that acquire clients, but I think a lot of people would be interested to know about your masterclass system and how you run advertising, advertise socially, and then how you take people through a masterclass, follow up with them, and generate clients on the other side. So do you want to talk a little bit about your experience with live masterclasses as an acquisition channel for your coaching business?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it was the first kind of scale strategy for me, and the one that I really have built my group program off, and therefore kind of the strength of my business. The other two have come in later and now are as important, but the masterclasses were really the thing. I used to do one of those kind of once every 3 months. I'd put some advertising live for 2 weeks beforehand. I'd sign people up. They'd get a couple of emails to see people in a class, and then I'd kind of follow up with them a bit. Now I've kind of really developed that program over time, so that now, well, when I'm running more regularly, I've actually run 3 classes over the last 3 weeks. I now can pretty much switch them off and on and do them. It's funny, I was laughing with my VA earlier on. We had a class running at 12. At 10 to 12, I was sat downstairs eating lunch, and I thought, oh, I must go upstairs and, switch it on. Whereas previously, the whole morning I would have been like, oh my God, I'm running a masterclass. And now, my real intention with my masterclasses is that people get what they need to have a really kind of life-changing session in that. Now, obviously I want them to come and work with me, but some people do get enough insight from that session. I regularly get emails from people to say that session changed my life. It gave me the insight I needed to go off and change my career, and that's brilliant. Now, some people in an hour are not going to get that, and then they're going to want to work with me. So that's a brilliant thing to have. But yeah, having that process where, and now what I'll do is I'll switch on the ads a week before. They're ads that I can turn off and on. You and I working together, I've got my ad costs down massively. I used to spend 500 quid on an ads manager and spend about 2 grand and get about 300 or 400 people. I now have no ads manager. I spend, hundreds rather than thousands and get the same kind of numbers. So that's, right from the beginning, that's massively reduced the cost and therefore kind of increased the margin. And then, we've just fine-tuned lots and lots of bits. There's lots of ways that I get, my intention is always to try and get someone into a call before the masterclass, so I can have a conversation with them. I can understand their situation. I can see if we're a fit. I can provide them some value. They can decide whether or not they want to work. Most people aren't going to turn up to a masterclass. So, and then I follow up with people afterwards, and there's lots of ways that we've worked on to increase that. So it's a work in progress. There's lots more things I can do, certainly, but now it's a process that, one, is easy to switch on and off. That, two, really does enable me to engage with a whole new audience, which a kind of a cold audience, and get them to being, knowing, liking and trusting me much more quickly. And then that converts into both people who've had like the change they need and other people who convert into paying clients. So it's a great process. And the big benefit for me is every time I do one, it builds my list. And that really benefits one of my other strategies, which is the stuff that we work on. So yeah, it's masterclasses have worked really brilliantly for me.
Excellent. Superb. And so you've also kind of got to the stage now where the actual masterclass itself, the system, the feeling of going into one is kind of very passive in comparison to where it was before. Can you talk to the sort of mindset that you have around like your marketing and, well, I suppose your marketing overall, but live delivery is the thing that a lot of coaches really struggle with. Did you struggle with it initially in terms of like, were you a little bit panicked about going live and what if I don't do it right or get something wrong? Was that part of the process for you initially?
It was, and like live launching is a roller coaster, right? It's an emotional roller coaster, and learning to kind of ride that roller coaster is definitely part of the thing. I mean, actually, going live was always a bit of a challenge, partly because I was aware there was so much I needed to do. There's an art to it. You can't just go in and present what you think. There's a real art to doing it well. There's things that you want to share, there's things that you probably shouldn't share, and there's an order and a structure to it. So I always got a little bit like that. I mean, frankly, having been a frontline politician for a while, I was probably more comfortable with standing in front of an audience, giving a presentation than other people, and also my consultancy job and pitches and all that kind of stuff. The thing that I always found really difficult and that's got easier is the kind of post, when you're waiting to see whether anyone signs up, that kind of emotional roller coaster. Because effectively you're saying to people, hi, here I am I good enough? Do you want to spend your money on me? It's at its most basic, it's kind of, am I good enough? And, that can be the emotional roller coaster. What's made that a lot easier actually is, and it's a time thing, is when you don't need people to sign up because your business is doing well enough already, then you can have a bit more detachment. I'm now really clear that, whether or not someone sees the value, I've got a great product. It's my job to help people understand that and understand if it's a great fit for them. If they decide it's not, that's no reflection on me. That's just that it's not in the right place, right time for them. So yeah, I had to do a lot of work on the the kind of emotional ringer that can be a live launch. To be honest, the more I do it, the easier it gets. You know, to the point where today I have really literally barely thought about it. And actually, that's the benefit of having done 3 in a row. I took most of the summer off. You know, 2 kids at home, a lot of friends staying. We went away for time. I carried on coaching. I structured my coaching, so I carried on coaching, but I did almost no sales and marketing. So I've got a little bit of the hopper to refill. So actually, just switching it on week for a couple of weeks has been great. But yeah, the ability to do that and for it not to feel emotionally exhausting is really nice.
Yeah, that's tremendous. And with the mindset work that you've obviously done there, and it is completely changing things for you in terms of your energy, your ability to do these more frequently. Is there any sort of mindset things that you needed to do on top of this, not for the master classes, but just to be able to manage your growth, the growth that you've gone through, but also probably to accelerate you to that growth? Was there any mindset changes that you needed to have to facilitate that growth in your coaching business?
Yeah, there's a couple. One definitely is around money and around charging. I've had to, I think, like most coaches, go through, new level, new devil. Every time you kind of get to it, you have to go through. I really, when I started off, I wasn't charging very much. And every time I worked with someone, they said, put your, it was like, oh. I had to do a lot of work on, one, the fact that my product, my program, my work is actually really valuable. You get a career change out of working with me. That is a level of fulfillment, a level of balance, a level of financial freedom for not just this year, but the rest of your career. You're talking, unquantifiable increase in happiness and fulfillment, and probably tens of thousands of kind of pounds of financial difference, let alone, the kind of greater health and well-being of you and your family from actually being around and not being at work the whole time. So, I had to do that piece of work of being clear that actually, even though I have a, it's £2,500, £3,500 to work in my group and 6,000 to work with me one-to-one. It's not a kind of small sum, but I'm really clear that that's absolutely fantastic value. This gets to be utterly life-changing. So that's a piece of work that I've had to do. And then I think the other piece of work that right from the point when I decided to become a coach and an entrepreneur I've had to do is really getting clear about how I see myself. Because when I first started, I don't have any history of entrepreneurialism within my family. My dad's a therapist, he has his own business, but he's very much like, I put up a website and if they come, they come. So I really had to reimagine what me as an entrepreneur looked like rather than me as an employee. And that's been really important. I remember hearing a podcast, don't think it was yours, but hearing a podcast where someone talks about the founder of IBM who said that the secret of that growth, and I don't know whether it's apocryphal because I think IBM was actually founded a long time ago, but the secret of that growth was that he'd always imagined IBM being a global company. And so every decision he'd taken was in that mindset of being a global company. And when I heard that, I was like, okay, yeah, that is how I want to build my business. I never want to be one of those coaches that sticks up a flyer at the corner shop and kind of does it like that. I've always been clear that what I wanted was a big kind of world-changing business that changed a lot of lives and that gave me and my family a great life to live as well. And seeing myself as that kind of entrepreneur, even before it was remotely true, it's kind of more true now and certainly not there yet, but stepping into that identity as that kind of coach, that kind of entrepreneur, that kind of space enables me to take decisions about what I do, about how I show up, about what I invest in, about how I go out to market, all of that stuff, about how I coach people. That's been a real game changer for me.
Excellent. And any imposter syndrome, any self-sabotage come into it as you were going through the income levels?
I always say in my career coaching that actually imposter syndrome often, I think, comes from people being in the wrong thing. So a lot of people are really good at their jobs, but it's a heavy lift. They've got good by kind of blood, sweat and tears. And they feel that in their bones. Like they feel that, they could drop a ball at any moment because they're having to try so hard at it. When you slot into the thing that you just know you're meant to do, I think it gets a lot easier. So I don't have a lot of imposter syndrome in this job, but I have done sometimes. When I first started doing masterclasses, when I was selling a program that didn't exist, when I was going on masterclass, actually my first 3 launches, I sold nothing. So I was having to really act as if, and actually the thing that got me through that was I was in a I was in a group program then, not your one, this was a while ago, but was seeing other people doing it and seeing that it worked for them and it could work for me. Like for me, I almost never work one-to-one with coaches now. I almost always go into group programs because they're so powerful being alongside other people doing the same thing. It really helps you, oh look, there's all these ordinary people doing the same thing. Okay, so I'm not an imposter if I'm doing it. So that's, being in a group program like yours, like others that I've been in, has made such a big difference to, okay, these people are doing, there's someone having a £50,000 launch and I know her and she's an ordinary person. That's been, very instrumental in not having that sense of, what am I doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like the live events, even weekly live sessions, like all of these things, people getting together. I almost find that the biggest breakthroughs typically happen not by asking a question, but by hearing somebody else's question getting answered. It's like that ability to hear other coaches or people in similar situations as you, either in the same situation or maybe even they're slightly further down the line than you. And being able to almost hear their problems before they occur for yourself is kind of like that canary down the mine, and they can their question getting answered or them solving that puzzle right in front of your eyes can really fast track your own growth as well. Do you find that from live sessions, live events, and things of that nature?
Yeah, absolutely. The reason why I always come to the live events and I show up to as many of the kind of weekly calls as I can is that, I learn vertically from you, but then I also learn horizontally from all the other coaches that I'm around. And as you say, sometimes it's because they're doing something fantastic and I kind of, they teach me how to do things. And sometimes I learn because they express something that I hadn't even realized I was thinking. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's my sticking point. I'm thinking like that and I didn't even realize. And so, when I'm selling my own programs, people often want the one-to-one because they think it's the better thing. Partly because it's more expensive. We always value the more expensive thing. I say to people like the group option is really not a kind of poor cousin. Actually, not only do you get other ways of learning, but our brains keep us stuck because they want us to be safe. If it's a choice between being safe or being miserable, they're going to choose miserable every time. And the thing that's not safe for our brains is anything new and risky. And so when you're in a group program and you see other people doing it, it teaches your brain that it's safe for them and it's safe for you. So your ability to go fast because you're in a group program, because you're seeing other people launching or doing whatever, and you see that it works for them, that gives your brain the safety to enable you to kind of go out and do it rather than keep you stuck. Your brain will keep you stuck in misery all the time if the choice is that or ultimately, thinks you're going to die if you go and do a launch. So group programs are transformational. Like I say, I almost never sign up to work one-to-one now because the power of the group it's a real secret sauce.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the group programs are so good, and your perspective on the group programs is probably what has allowed you to price your group program appropriately for the impact that it has. So it's still like an absolute bargain, even though it's 2.5K. Whereas most people, when they do a group program, they'll say to me, yeah, I've been selling, my one-to-one at, let's say, 2K. And they'll say, so I'm thinking about doing a group program, but I'm going to do it at, and then it's like a nothingness price in comparison to their one-to-one. Now, there are elements of like what world are you in? How big a group program is it? What kind of support is included inside the group program? There's things that dictate price. But if the impact is the same, if the result is the same, if the overall experience can even be argued to be better than the one-to-one experience, it needs that premium price point alongside it.
One of the things I always say to people is you get something different in a group, as well as all the group stuff. You actually get a different style of coaching. If I'm coaching one-to-one with someone, it's a very one-to-one relationship. I'm listening, I'm coaching, all that kind of stuff. You get that in a group program, but then you also get, I'll do a coaching session once a month where I'm actually kind of talking on a subject, so not teaching, more kind of the mindset stuff, which you just get less of if you're in one-to-one because someone's not going to talk at you for an hour. So there's actually different like coaching modalities, different techniques that you'll get in a group program that you just can't get in the same way. A mix is always good. So what you want to be sure of in a group program is you're actually getting some coaching time with the coach. The brilliant thing about systems of scale and private coaching, you get so much access to you. I have no idea how you do it, but you get all of that goodness as well as all of the kind of stuff of a group, and that's That's the magic, really.
You have more people sign up to your group program than your one-to-one, right? Because that's like you sell out your one-to-one, the doors get slammed shut essentially. You have more people come into the group coaching. I'm interested, let's say you have 30 leads, right? However long that takes, it doesn't really matter. 30 leads. Do you find that the majority of people are like straight into the conversation about the group program, or do you find that most people are interested in one-to-one and the group program is an easier sell because it is a downsell after talking about one-to-one pricing? Like how does the dynamic typically happen in terms of somebody coming to you and turning it into a group member rather than a one-to-one?
Yeah. So interestingly, the way I sell it, I sell one program delivered two ways. So I'll have my sales conversation, and sometimes that's value led. Sometimes it's kind of come and get an action plan, and I'll say to them at the beginning, if I think I can help you with that, I'll tell you what that looks like. And sometimes they're coming for an explicit conversation about working with me, but always it's a similar structure of, I actually want to understand, first of all, who you are, what you want, and can I help you? Then I'm going to give you some feedback about what I think we would work on together. And then we'll have a conversation about the program. And the conversation always is, I have one program and I deliver it two ways. You can do it one-to-one, or you can do it in the group program. This is how this one works, this is how this one works, and then there's two prices. And so they get to choose between the two in that way. And actually, a lot of people will say, actually, the group program sounds great. And it's not just a financial thing. It is because you get that I guess my passion for group programs comes through because I think they're so powerful. Some people are clear they only will ever want to work one-to-one. They don't want to be in a group. It's not going to work for them. They want the depth of one-to-one. But for a lot of people, some people will choose the one-to-one because it's a financial choice. And always they say to me, I chose the group for a financial choice, but it was so great. I loved it. I didn't think it would be this amazing. But often it will be a quality choice that actually they see that what they need is to be in a community of people doing the same thing.
Excellent. Super. That's a really interesting take. I think there'll be some aha moments for some coaches here in terms of how they're positioning having two products. I mean, there's lots of coaches out there. There's lots of coaches that we work with that have two programs. They have a one-to-one and they have a group version, and positioning it not as, hey, we've got this thing or we've got this thing that's completely different. Which one speaks more to you? But instead, it's we've got one program and we can deliver it one-to-one at a premium, or you can go into the group program. And that thing, I love like the downsell to upsell. I love the way you describe group programs there as arguably more powerful. I bet that comes through in like the sales presentation. Look, to be honest, I feel that you'll actually get more out of it, even though you're going to pay less, which is kind of like that thing of, we disproportionately appreciate the thing that a business did not have to do for us. Like, tell us why the more affordable thing is probably the right thing. Does that come through like in the way people receive it?
Yeah, absolutely. And still some people will then want to choose the one-to-one. But I try really hard. Some people I would say, look, I think you should do the one-to-one because what you want, it's a bit different at your learning style. But for other people, I'll say to them, the group program is, particularly if people, I'm talking about career change, if people have been in a really toxic work environment, if they're feeling very isolated, very alone, like they're very on the, they've really struggled, getting into a group program is a great move for them. And so I'll talk to them about that. And I always, I say it like that. I say it's one program delivered two ways. And then I always say you get exactly the same outcome. You know exactly what it is you want to do next in your career. You've got the confidence and self-belief to make it happen, and you've got the bespoke action plan that makes it possible. Exactly the same outcome. It's the same length. There's a difference in delivery and a difference in price, but you get to the same place. And so it takes out all of that confusion over, well, what's this thing and what's this thing. Confused mind doesn't buy. So if you can just make it super simple, there's one program, one way you're going to sit in front of me once a week, the other way you're going to sit in some group calls and going to do an online course, you get the same outcome. Just makes that buying decision so much easier for people.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was popping into my head there. Chris Cardell, right? This guy, I don't even know if he exists. I don't know if he's in. I don't know if he's still around. I don't know if he's in prison. But I remember about 11, 12 years ago. I was in my first business and I was trying to find marketing solutions. Like, this is when I really needed to find marketing solutions for my business. I wasn't a marketing degree person. I didn't just have every marketing solution in my mind. I needed ideas. And I remember Chris Cardell was a guy that popped up on TV with a TV ad, and it was like you could buy 20 CDs, right? So it actually came as CDs that you had to like put in and listen to, but it was something like 250 ways to grow your business. And I remember one thing that I took away, and by the way, back then, like 11, 12 years ago, I used to have, the portable CD players.
Yeah.
And you'd wear the
Yeah.
headphones with
Yeah.
them, well before iPods and everything. I used
Yeah.
to like attach that to my hip and then walk around a golf course listening to like CDs about growing businesses.
Yeah.
But one
Very,
thing that
very
he talked
gently,
about,
they didn't skip. You couldn't move too much with one of those because it would skip all over the place. You had to
no,
be like float
no,
along.
not at all. It was absolutely bonkers. But something that he talked about that always stuck with me right from the word go, which meant that immediately I implemented this into our first business as well, and we implement it into our business to an extent here. It sounds like you've got the same sort of thing. Is he said 10% of your audience will pay 3 times the amount to have a more personalized experience, and 2.5% on average of your audience will pay 10 times the amount for an exclusive top line experience. And he said, so if you don't have something that is more expensive, even if you don't think that people should be going for it because the product that is lower cost is more than enough for what they need to get the result, you just need to know that there's certain people who are looking for that thing. And he described it as, there's certain people that go to restaurants and they are not looking for what they are interested in, like what's their favorite dish. They're looking for what's the most expensive thing on the menu because I'm really interested in what that thing might taste like, And so certain people that coaches are going to get on the phone with are actually looking for what is the top line experience that you provide, which is probably why, even though, again, that the group program does everything that it needs to do to get people to the desired result, there's always going to be a market for you to have one-to-one and at a much higher premium. What was it, 2.5K and 6K?
Yeah, so my normal group price is 3.5. I discount it after my masterclass for a few days, but normally it's 3.5. And then my one-to-one's 6. Both of those plus VAT. So that's what, four and a bit, or seven and a bit. So yeah, it's not double, and probably I need to put my one-to-one price up at some point. What's interesting is every time I've put my one-to-one price up, because I've been full and I've thought I should put this up a bit, it's actually got easier to sell. In fact, same with my group actually. I started out at 997 and it was kind of hard to sell, and every time I've put it up I found it a little bit easier to sell. There's that weird perverse thing that we value the things that are more expensive, and sometimes people will say to me, I've shopped around, you're much more expensive than other people, but you're the thing, this is the thing I want to do, you're the coach that I want to work with. It's when you're doing stuff that's life-changing, whether it's building a business, helping someone change a career, like they want to go with what feels right, and they understand the investment. So yeah, it's having that top price offer, and it's still, as I say, it's still an utter bargain compared to what you get for the rest of your life and your career.
Love it. Yeah, our first ever course that we had was something called the 16-week digital marketing program. It was kind of like a hands-off 997 course. It had like bits and pieces of everything inside there. And we sold it at 997 for probably like 6 months or 8 months or 9 months or something to that effect, and it sold reasonably well. And then, no joke, I thought one day, I want to charge what I feel that it's more than worth, and I also want to play into everything that I know about behavior psychology here, rather than just saying that I know it in my head. And so I went and I changed it from 997 to 2,800. So I nearly tripled the price, and no joke, the conversion rate went up and stayed up continuously from there. So we had nearly triple the price, and we had significantly more people close on calls at that price point. It was absolutely bonkers. And so for coaches that come to us, and they might fill in the application form and say, I've got coaching that I sell at £100 a month for like one-to-one coaching, or 150 a month. It's like really, really low cost. And they go, and I still get pushback. So I'm really nervous about the idea of increasing my prices. I'm like, it's because your price is so low that nobody wants to go for it, because the price perception of your price, because they will be shopping around, is you are the cheapest. And it's that thing of like, people go to the wine aisle, and the majority of people buy bottles of wine between 15 and 25 pounds, because there are things that are 6, 7, 8 pounds, and then there's the things that are 75, and they go for somewhere that sits nicely in the middle, where they go, I'm not going for the lowest thing, but I'm going for the middle thing, which is the majority of people out there, just like the 90 and 10% thing for pricing your product.
Yeah, it's interesting because I genuinely could not tell you what a single other career coach charges. I have no idea. I just don't, because it's not really relevant. Partly because people tend to come into my world not looking for a career coach, but looking for a career change. So they haven't done that shopping around. But also because just not relevant. I'm going to set my prices, and you know, I'm not affordable for a whole bunch of people, and I don't have a problem with that, because there's a whole bunch of other coaches out there that are affordable for them and that are really brilliant, and they'll get a brilliant career change from. I don't feel like I have to change the world single-handedly, so my price point is my price point, and then if that doesn't work for you, you go and find someone else who's brilliant. So yeah, I think you can get really lost in how much does that person charge, what's the market. Now obviously in some markets, if you're very geographical or something, that might be really relevant, but most of the time just not that big a consideration.
Love it. I love that positive note to end on. Right. The final thing that I want to ask you is, if somebody wants to attend your masterclass or just find out more about you, where can people go to find yourself?
So the main place I hang out is on Instagram, and I'm Your Best Life UK there, or on Facebook. So those are the places to find me.
Excellent. Super. Well, what we'll do is we'll drop down below this video on YouTube and in the description inside Apple Podcasts, etc. We'll drop your Instagram link, and if you send me over the masterclass link as well, in case anybody's interested in a career change themselves, then we'll drop that down below so they have easy access to come and join that free masterclass as well. But a big massive thank you to you, my man. I absolutely love you. I love you as a person anyway, but you know, you're just such an interesting guy and have such interesting perspectives on things. And I'm just, I'm absolutely buzzing to see you in November, in Glasgow, in January, in Miami, and just get to spend more time in person with you as well. Absolutely buzzing. So thanks so much, man. Really appreciate you.
Well, right back at you.